All right, welcome. Purim class. Purim is this week. So you have to be, even though this parsha is a very interesting parsha, but we're going to put aside the devastation of this week's parsha with the joy of Purim. So today's times is very different than ancient times. In ancient times, that everybody lived under a king. So no one had free will. So religion fit very well in ancient times because the king commanded. You do. Hello, welcome. So it's a lot. It would seem a lot easier to understand and be more comfortable with the Torah's commandments because, anyways, you have to listen to the king. But now that we live in a time of liberty, and everybody could do what they want, when they want, how they want, and these days you can decide who you are, what you are. So it seems as Judaism, Torah rules are a little bit, let's say, outdated. Right? It seems so how do we fit in Torah, Judaism into modern day? So today we're going to talk about the story of Purim, but we're really going to speak about the beginning of the story, not the whole Megillah. This class is only 45 minutes to an hour long.
That's a good phrase. The whole Megillah.
Exactly. And and we're going to learn that not only is choice very precious in Hashem's eyes, but the fact of the matter is it's actually a very critical part of religious life. Let's get into the story of Purim, and obviously we're going to focus on Rashi to help us understand the story. So the beginning of the Megillah, chapter 1, deals with the feast Achashverosh made. Now, why Achashverosh made a 6-month feast is a subject of discussion in the Gemara, in the Medrash. But one of the most famous Midrashim is that Achashverosh did a calculation that everybody knew of the 70-year prophecy that Jeremiah made, that the temple is going to be destroyed, there's going to be a 70-year exile, and the Jews will return to Israel. So Belshazzar and Achashverosh, a few people miscalculated. When did the 70 years begin? So Achashverosh, he wasn't, they say he was a fool, but he knew a little bit of history. The history that he did know, he understood that the Jewish God was very powerful. And therefore, when he saw that the 70 years had come and gone and the Jews were no closer to going back to Israel, rebuilding a second commonwealth, rebuilding a temple, so he thought, finally, my kingdom is secure. And that is why he made a 6-month feast. Because he wanted to make a party. 6 months is a little bit crazy. The Gemara does talk about the Persians and not in glowing terms. And one of the things it says about the Persians, they were very indulgent, as we can see. So text number 1, we said this already. Text number 1 it's a rather long text, and it talks about that in the third year of his king. You have to realize, by the way, the story of Purim takes place it starts in the third year, well, over here, in the third year of his king, and it ends off in the 13th year. So we read it in 20 to 30 to 40 minutes, depending who's reading, right? But it takes place over a long time. So, and then it says he made a 6-month feast, and then and then he also made a 7-day feast. It says verse number 5, he made a feast for all the people of Shushan. Shushan was the capital. Now the capital was in Babylonia, but Achashverosh wanted to show that Persia was the seat of power. So he moved.
It's my dad's favorite movie.
What?
Shushan Redemption.
I never heard of it. A recent movie?
It's Shawshank Redemption, but...
Oh, Shushan Redemption. Oh, there you go.
Don't tell him that. He keeps calling it Shushan.
Oh, all right. I can drink it. So Achashverosh moved the capital to Shushan. By the way, they know Shushan is. Archaeologists say They found the remnants of Achashverosh's castle, or palace, whatever it is. Very interesting stuff.
There was a guy still partying.
Exactly. Someone still passed out drunk there. It could be. And then in verse number 6, it tells us about the adornments of Achashverosh's palace. He says he had drapes of white and fine cotton and blue embroidered with cords of fine linen and royal purple. Purple was the most expensive color in the olden days. And silver rods, marble, and he served drinks in gold vessels, all different types, and the royal wine was in abundance to fit the king's power. And the drinking followed the rule, no coercion. We'll get to that soon. What's going on? For the king had established that in all in his house offices should do each man desire. That is on the men's side. See, by the way, the Persians were very religious. They had a men's party and a women's party. By us, we're like not religious. By us, the Kiddush, we all sit together. But the ancient Persians, they were super orthodox, like ultra orthodox. They had a men's party and a women's party. No, that's not why they did it. By the way, we'll get to that why. Yeah. You have to be careful. So Vashti also made a feast. This is text number 2. Vashti makes a feast for the woman, and everybody knows the story that Achashverosh summons Vashti to come, and Vashti says no. Why did Vashti say no? So according to the Midrash, by the way, the Megillah is a book you cannot read. Just read the text. You have to read with Midrash. It's almost impossible. Nothing makes sense. Even the things in the Medrash hardly make sense. But one of the things is that after partying for so long, they got into a very important argument, and he said, "Which women are prettier, the Persians or the Medes?" Right? Everybody was saying, who's prettier. So Achashverosh says, "You guys are all crazy. My wife is Babylonian, and she is the most gorgeous woman around." And he said, Everybody could look gorgeous when they're wearing, Dolce Gabbana, and they're all dressed up. Why don't she have come dressed like a commoner? Let her come and look like everyone else, and then we'll see.
She also happened to be royalty.
We'll get to that soon. Yeah, she was royalty. She was the daughter of Belshazzar. Yeah.
No, she was the granddaughter of
Granddaughter and the daughter of Belshazzar.
Yeah.
So the actually there's some opinions that say Achashverosh wanted her to come wearing only the royal crown, and you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Now Vashti obviously said
she was an early pole dancer. Go right.
Right. No, but Vashti said that's exactly what I'm not. Vashti said exactly what I'm not. She said back to Achashverosh, "You're a drunken fool. You want to win the stupid argument with your friends. You're going to debase me. You're going to debase the kingdom. I'm not coming. I'm the queen. I'm not coming to prove to anybody. I don't have to prove anything. I'm the queen."
The quote was, "You think you can drink? My grandfather could drink."
Right. The quote was, it says, "My grandfather could drink enough for 1,000 men and wouldn't get drunk. You have a few drinks and become a complete idiot." Right? Now, obviously, Achashverosh didn't like that. So it says he calls the wise men. This is in verse. Says in verse 13, he calls the wise men, and he says, from the 7 provinces, what should be done according to the law. And Memuchan, which by the way people say is Haman, Memuchan is another name for Haman, says not against the king alone as Vashti said, but against all the princes and all the people. So the queen's deed will be known, and everybody and all the women are going to speak back against their husbands. Therefore, Achashverosh should command that Vashti should be executed no more and get a better queen instead of her.
Time out. Where they named Mehuman,
Memuchan,
Albona, Bigda. They say the 7 eunuchs.
Okay, so
One of those was Daniel, right?
no, Daniel wasn't in the
At the end,
I think they did that in the movie. I don't think it's true. We'll get to that.
Movie I really need to watch.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second.
I've read
So what happened was Achashverosh had Jewish advisors. When the sages saw, I put my thing on silent. When the sages saw that there was a whole fight, men, women, this and that, they said, "We are getting out of here. This is trouble." It says if we give advice one way, somehow we're going to be to blamed. So in the beginning, he did call the Jewish advisors, but then they They had a dentist appointment. They ran away. So it could be Daniel was originally there, but the Jewish advisors totally, they scrapped. Okay. So this whole story doesn't. A lot of the story here doesn't make sense, right? We have to realize what a king is. A king is absolute control. If you are not the king, you are an object. You are a piece. He can break you, throw you out, right? You are totally, even if you consider yourself important, if the king decides, that his left pinky is hurting, it's my right pinky, because of you.
It's in the book of Samuel.
Right.
If you didn't read that.
Right, you're dead, right? Whatever it is, the king's back is hurting and he feels it's your fault, you're dead. So the king could kill anybody for nothing. Vashti answers back with such chutzpah, and all of a sudden Achashverosh is like, I wonder what I should do. All of a sudden you don't know what to do? It seems very interesting.
Maybe he's still drunk.
That he for sure. In fact, chapter 2 begins, after these matters, what happens, Achashverosh woke up from his drunken stupor, and he said, what did I do? And that's why he was depressed, and the people worked in the palace. Hey, maybe let's look for someone. In fact, there's a rabbi, his name is Shlomo Akabetz. He wrote L'Chadodi. He writes extensively about this Megillah, and he says in this portion, if you realize, Achashverosh keeps saying according to the law, because he was asking them to find a loophole in the law that somebody, maybe there's a reason, I'm drunk, whatever it is, and also, hey Eric, and also, Achashverosh understood that she's drunk, and also that she comes from royalty, right? She was the granddaughter of the guy who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first temple. This is his granddaughter. In fact, by the way, she was responsible for stopping the reconstruction. The Jewish people got permission not under Achashverosh, the previous king, I think, the Koresh, got permission to start rebuilding the temple, and what happened was Achashverosh became king, and Vashti said, "Hey, my grandfather destroyed it, and you're letting the Jews rebuild it." It's a slap in the face. So she stopped. So she had to stop. God said, "All right, we'll see." But there are many different answers to this question of why Achashverosh. But let's stick to this answer. That's question number 2. Now, we know that Achashverosh could have just killed the king could kill anybody. Who's in France? They kept, or in England, they kept killing the queen or something. That was
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII, right? He had 5 wives or something. 6.
Didn't
Well, he had 5 dead wives, and right? I think
6 dead wives and 1 live one.
it was, I think you get a resume. You get a resume to be Henry VIII's wife. You say, no, I think
I'll take a pass.
Yeah, I'll take a pass. So we know that Achashverosh could kill even his queen at such a short, without thinking. Because later, when Mordechai, see text number 3, when Mordechai asks Esther to go to Achashverosh to plead for the Jewish people, Esther said, "You crazy? Achashverosh hasn't called me. If I come to him without asking, and he gets angry, he'll kill me." So just like that. That's one question. And then the whole argument that Memuchan makes. Memuchan's argument is totally. If you think about it, if you read his argument that why Vashti should be executed, it's totally ridiculous. So he says. So if you let's look at text number 4. This is Chaim Ibn Batard, or Chaim is called. So what does he say? He says, because if Achashverosh doesn't kill Vashti, then regular people are going to be mistreated. So the regular person's honor is more important than the king's honor? That's what he says, right? So he said, look at text 4a. And those who are close to him said, one may ask, what does Memuchan mean when he says, not against the king alone does Vashti sin? It implies that her sinning against the king wasn't enough. That's only because the actions are going to result in all this behavior around the kingdom. Oh, that's okay. And then he continues. A second part, he says. And when Memuchan says, Lo yala melech of Vashti al-Malka, not only did Vashti sin against you, even worse, she sinned against the ministers. That's shouldn't the order be the other way around? I remember a long time ago. Remember my townhouse?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So one time we had a family. It was Rosh Hashanah night. We had a kid, and he was bored. So he went. If you remember, my townhouse was a bathroom right next to it. So he went in there. So during a lull in the meal, it was quiet. All of a sudden, we hear him from the bathroom. Deet, 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 deet. So his mother says, "Hey," says, "Are you on the phone on Rosh Hashanah on Shabbat in the rabbi's house?" We're like, it's all the way around. I think you got your priorities all messed up, right? So over here, and by the way, there's actually commentators say that Memuchan was the most junior. I think he's last, mentioned last. Memuchan was the most junior advisor. He jumps ahead. The other advisors were making fun of Achashverosh. So this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. So Achashverosh has to be an idiot to listen. Achashverosh says, great idea, right? And it was a good idea.
So you're saying that Mel Brooks would play Achashverosh.
Why?
Mel Brooks is a very good idiot.
I'd maybe miss him. So, and also, it's interesting that when does Achashverosh get angry? Achashverosh gets angry not at her initial refusal, because he's not angry, right? He is angry. But when does Achashverosh really lose it? When he hears her reply, "I'm not going to come because you're an idiot and you're a lowlife and you can't drink and all that." And he insulted a man's drinking. That's right. When you tell a man he can't hold his liquor, that's it. We're done. Right. So it's a very
blow.
Exactly. So it's a very, very interesting question. Now, what's interesting is that Rashi doesn't really say anything about this. Rashi seems just to. It says Rashi just expects you either to understand. The rule of Rashi is, remember, that if Rashi doesn't answer, it's because the answer is there staring you in the face and you're just not getting it, or he answered it already and you just don't remember, or he answered it already and you didn't realize he answered it. So let's go understand what's going on over here. How come Rashi doesn't say anything? And let's learn the lesson. Okay. In Hebrew, what's the Hebrew word for command? Command. Tziva. Now, you would think that if Achashverosh wanted to command or give orders to his household about how to run the party, the word being used in the Megillah would be tziva, commanded. But that's not the word. In fact, the word he uses is he established. Interesting. Is Kichein Yisad HaMelech Al Kol Rav Beisayk. So the king established on all.
What's the word that they use?
Kichein Yisad HaMelech. If you go back, it's not in verse 5.
I'm looking around here.
No. If you go, it's in verse. It's in verse 1.
It's okay. I just thought that I was on the wrong page.
Yeah. No. It's in. Where is it? It's in verse 8. So it's the last verse of text 1. Mm-hmm. The king, it says, the drink followed the rule, no coercion, for the king had established on all his house's offices. Interesting choice of words. It seems to say that the king made a rule. Says not only for the waiters but for everybody. For all the house officers. Who was it talking about? Rashi says, Al Kol Rav Beisai, he says is...
the word is Yasad?
Yasad, yeah. It's established. It says... So the word is...
It's a clever legal term.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So all the officials, the feast, the chief of the baker, the butchers, and all the chief of the cuppers, Why are we involving so many people over here? It seems like it's a lot of politics. I'll go back to the previous screen where it has the questions. See, the two questions we're asking Rashi is Rashi doesn't seem to be answering. If Achashverosh is just instructing the waiters about how to serve people, why does it say, what does it command? And also, why does he talk about the house officers, not just the cupbearers, the bakers, and all that? So why involved in the command about drinking? All right. So we have to get into a little Persian culture in order to understand exactly how things worked. Where are we? Oh, not yet. Also, one final question. So the verse itself is repetitive. The king already said that everybody could do what they want. Why does the verse say there was no coercion? If everybody could do what they want, then you're not being what is everyone married? You're allowed to have your wife's opinion. What's going on there, right? Says no. All right. So okay. So now text number 6. So Rashi says, what does it mean chados? So in the beginning, on verse 8, that there was a law about drinking. What was the law of drinking? That Rashi says, we'll see in verse 6, very short, and then there was verse text number 7 is going to expand upon it. That in Persian times, they would force guests to drink an entire cup. They would put a cup in front of you. It was a very large cup, and you had to finish it. And now, the palace officers turned this into a scam. Because let's say you wanted to come to a party and you didn't want to be forced to drink this, because if you look at the text number 7, a person could die from alcoholic poisoning, or a person can go crazy. It said 5 measures. I don't know how much a measure is, but it seems to be, it's called a pitka. That was the name of the cup. So you would do is you would pay off the palace guards to make sure that no one forced you to drink it. Now, Achashverosh didn't want any of these cups by his party. They didn't want anyone to force. By the way, there's an interesting measure. This is totally as an aside. That the Haman and Achashverosh planned this party together. They wanted to get rid of the Jewish people, but they were afraid that the Jewish people have merit on their side. They have mitzvahs on their side. They won't warrant punishment and instruction. So what do? They had to get them to sin. But if you force them to sin, it can't be held against them. So invite the Jews, and you can't force them, and let them sin. What happened? So like the Gemara said, the Jewish people wanted to be Persian. God said, "You want to be Persian? Go be Persian. See what happens." Right, and then that's what. And that's in fact in the portion of Hazinu. It's a reference to the story of the Megillah. So Hashem tells the Jewish people, I will surely hide my face from you on that day. When you hide your face from me, when you want to act all Persian, I'll also. Now the word Esther, it's not pronounced Esther, it's spelled Astir, but it's the same word. It's a reference. It's like the Bible code. You don't know what you're looking for until it happens. Then you can go back and find it. What?
Bible code's way more complex than that.
But this guy decided he can predict events. I don't know.
You can confirm, but not predict with the Bible code.
You can predict.
What are they?
Not really, because that means you're doing things at random. No?
But you could try. The question is it?
I've studied.
Okay. I mean,
this is a conversation off.
Right? Yeah. Totally off subject. Okay. So now we're beginning to understand what's going on. So there was a Persian social etiquette, which you drink until you drop, until you're dead. Well, until what? Well, I'll see. It depends how, Eric. How do you handle alcohol? You all right?
I'm fine.
Yeah, fine.
Polish blood.
Okay, so you would have no problem with this cup, right?
6 measures is where I start.
Jerry Seinfeld has a joke about maximum strength. Medicine. What's maximum strength? To figure out what will kill me, just back it off a notch. You know what I'm saying? So you have the social etiquette, and now how does the king how does the king get away with breaking social etiquette, the social norms? So it says that what he's doing is he was created kind of a new law, a new norm that usually you had to do what the Persian way of life is, but now everybody can do what they want. So now we understand why you use the word yisad, established. Because he was saying, no more are we going to do that whole forcing thing. Now everybody can eat or drink what they want. And now it's not repetitive anymore. Everything seems to make sense. Excuse me. Except the fact is about what are all those. Sorry, we even answered the question of what are all those guys. Why Rashi mentions all those people, the baker, the butcher, all those people, is because it was a whole new social norm. Okay, now let's get back. Now we can understand the whole story with Vashti. She was rejected. Now we said before, why did Achashverosh get mad when Vashti refused her? Because remember, at the party, everyone can do what they want. So Achashverosh should come. Vashti says, "No, I don't want." Achashverosh said, "Oh boy, I wasn't planning on that. What do I do? What do I do now?" So you see, so now we understand why he had to call the advisors. So what do we do? Now, but the problem is even law breaking. Even law breaking has its limits. So now we can understand a little bit why the Torah is telling us this whole narrative. Vashti says so now we can understand what Memuchan was getting at. It wasn't so crazy what Memuchan was saying. So he's trying to say over here is, yeah, you broke the social norms, yeah, for the party. But Vashti is taking advantage, and now you're going to change the whole societal fabric of the whole Persia. You can't allow that. You can't allow that to happen. So if you let it slide, because you're the king and it's the palace and everything else, you're going to undermine your entire society. So Achashverosh felt like he had no choice but to kill Vashti. Because in the words of in 2025, it was a matter of national security. Achashverosh, by the way, the Gemara calls him weak-minded. You know what? It says he killed his wife because of his friend, and he killed his friend because of his wife. You know what I'm referring to? He kills Vashti because of Haman, and he kills Haman because of Esther. Right. You know, in the story of Purim, when Haman gets the okay from Achashverosh, he sends out a decree the same day. Why? Well, first of all, he hated the Jews. But why the same day? Because he was worried that Achashverosh would wake up tomorrow.
And change his mind.
Yeah, it changed, you know. And Achashverosh is one of these people you can't buy in bulk. Because you never know what he wants, right? So this is the lesson. This is the lesson we're going to learn from the Megillah. Now, you have to realize the Megillah is a book of the Torah. It's a great story. It's a fascinating story. And you think you could just read the story, but it's not so simple to read a story. So there's a story before we move on. The Alter Rebbe, the Shneur Zalman, would read the Megillah every year. But he passed away. Someone else in the shul read the Megillah, and his son who became the next Rebbe. His name is Dever. After the reading of the Megillah, there's a custom in some Jewish communities to tip the reader.
With candies, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's a
No, JoJo's running in the 8th.
So
I'll bring as many Altoid tins as I can.
okay, there you go. So the Mittel Rebbe, after the Megillah, goes over to the reader and gives him a handsome tip. So somebody goes over to him and says, "Why did he give the reader such a handsome tip?" He says, "Such a amazing, beautiful story. Psh, I never heard such a story." So what are you talking about? You're in shul every year and you hear the story. He said, "No, when my father read the Megillah, it was a totally different story. You know, he saw it on a totally different level." So even the Ramah says, the Megillah gets, I don't know, a bad rap because Hashem's name is not in it. And it seems like a very, flowing story, and you have emotion, and you have dialogue, unlike the Torah is like black box, strings, like this. So the Torah, but the Megillah though, it's part of the Torah, it's part of the Tanakh. Like the Ramah says, in my opinion, it's impossible. Where are we? I'm behind. Very behind. Where are we?
Hello?
Hey, Ron.
There we go.
Yeah. So next to Barbara. If she bothers you, let me know. So the Ramah says, in my opinion, it's impossible for Megillah Esther to not contain both inner and outer meaning, both Sod, Kabbalah, and Nigla. It says Esther was told with divine spirit, just like all the other holy scriptures. From one example, you can prove the nature of the entire category. If the other holy scriptures contain both hidden reveals, surely the Megillah does it does as well. In fact, one of the most famous lines you see in text 9a and 9b, when it says Melech Achashverosh, it's talking about Achashverosh. When it says Ha Melech, the king, who's the king referring to?
God.
Hashem, right? This is not a Chabad custom, but in other communities, when they write the Megillah, they make sure that every column has the word Hamelech on it. That's not our custom because we want to be different. Also, the Chabad scribes need to make a living. That's not that. They also, you could also tell a not Chabad Megillah. They have all 10 sons of Haman in one column. It's a big one column. We don't do that. If you see me, I have 2 Megillahs here. So I used to meet my grandfather. Well, both my grandfathers were in Chabad. My mother had my grandfather's Megillah. I used to look at it. It was old in a tin case. I remember it had all this. In the olden days they would color the beginning of the Megillah, end of the Megillah. You ever see it pull out of the? You know what I'm talking about? Slip cases that would pull the Megillah out. You ever see those? Yeah. All right. So he says. So Zevichon says that the Hamelech can be referring to God or Achashverosh. The Zohar says straight out. The Zohar says that every time it says Hamelech, it refers to Hashem. And now let's learn the feast according to Kabbalah. That Hashem arranged the feast. In fact, Purim, Kabbalah explains, and it's mentioned in other places, that Purim is a very, very holy day. In fact, it's even holier than Yom Kippur. If you look at the Halachas Gedolos, the Bahag, he says Purim is greater the day of Purim than the day of the giving of the Torah.
Isn't Purim and Hanukkah the 2 holidays that we'll celebrate after Yom Mashiach?
Purim
And Hanukkah.
Purim and Yom Kippur.
I've heard Hanukkah because Nachash, Mashiach, and Nes Gadol Hashem, the Nun Gimel,
Maybe.
that's the same gematria. And Hanukkah has been a holiday that we've been celebrating since Adam, and it will be celebrated until Mashiach.
Since Adam.
Yeah, that when he left, it was the first 8 days that the sun was going down. They thought that it was going to go down.
That's where Havdalah comes from.
Also Hanukkah,
Right.
the
Oh,
first,
interesting.
and it
And then-
was Enosh it was Adam who created it as the first commemoration. It was Enosh that made it an official holiday.
Interesting.
And,
I know the winter solstice or Sunday, whatever it is, December 25th was invented by Adam. That pagan holiday, December 25th, wasn't a Christian holiday, it was a pagan holiday. Who invented it?
It was the winter
Adam.
solstice, but
Yeah. Adam invented it.
you've never heard the gematria thing about Nachash, Mashiach,
No.
and Nun Gimel.
Oh, it's interesting.
Nation?
Yeah. Again, that doesn't mean. So now, how can we say that the Purim is as great a day as the giving of the Torah? Let's revisit the giving of the Torah for a second, and you understand. What happened when the Jewish people were standing around Mount Sinai? They all gathered around the mountain, and God said, "Listen, guys, I'm God. You serve me." Says, you do good, good. You're not, you're dead. In fact, according to the Medrash, he literally threatened them. In the words in the words where it says, then they stood
Put the mountain over there.
Tachtit Ahar, which in context means at the foot of the mountain, but literally means under the mountain. God lifted out Mount Sinai and said, listen guys, I'm going to make you an offer. You see, God's last name is Corleone. He said, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, right? The whole world was created, or you guys are around to accept the Torah. If you don't accept the Torah, I don't need yous anymore. So I'll just drop the mountain. So what do the Jewish people say? Well, when you put it like that, all right, well, we'll take the Torah. Only because we want it, right? So, but not only that, but the whole experience was a one directional experience. It was God showing that He's only God. I mean, He had to do that. I mean, we're talking to people that believe in idols and everything else. He said fire. He controlled all the parts of nature. There was fire and lightning and thunder and sound was coming from all sides. They saw, into the heavens. It says in last week's parsha. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, the parsha, what they saw at the giving of the Torah, but the Jewish people were just awestruck and amazed by God. But what happened? This week's parsha. What happens 40 days later? This week's parsha. They build a golden calf. How could that happen? How could such a thing happen? Well, it's because it wasn't internalized. It was all God dictating to them, which obviously was necessary. But the problem, what lacked was the Jewish people didn't buy in 100%. In the story of Purim, there's no miracles, there's no thunder, there's no lightning, there's no godliness, so to
All
speak.
10 Sefirot are named.
Yeah, I understand. But
Like,
in the story, especially if you take each chapter and you divide it, you read it separately. Each event is very, very. The miracle only happens when you string all 10 chapters together, all 9 chapters together. 10th chapter is 3 verses. If you take each chapter by itself, and also you have to realize they're years apart. So Achashverosh kills Vashti in year 3. Esther is not chosen until 4 years later. 3 years after that, Haman is appointed. It takes time. And even after Haman's hung, still 9 months until the war. It's a very long time. So in the story of Purim, like Alter Rebbe famously says, well, maybe we'll learn on Shabbos. Famously says the Jewish people bought it on their own, not because they had to, because they wanted to. In fact, the Alter Rebbe teaches through various sources that if the Jewish people would have converted to the Persian lifestyle, they would have been saved. But they didn't. Why? Because they bought in as proud Jews. Let's look at text number 11. It says the right hand embraced me. This refers to the revelation from above, right? Embrace. Hashem is hugging them. As it's written, it says, Hashem said, I love you. And God's love embraced the Jewish people, completely enveloping them, even their lowest aspects, until He left them with no space to turn. When you hug somebody, sometimes you go to your kids and you hug them, and they're squirming to get out, and they want to get out. I don't care. I love you. I'm hugging you. I remember when I was a kid. I'm the youngest in my family. When I was a kid, 4, 5, 6, I can't remember exactly what age. My brother Penny was learning in yeshiva in New York also. So sometimes he was home when I came home, he would go to me, he would tackle me, sacked, and he would just sit on top of me. Get off! I have to scream for my mother. I still remember. So when you love somebody and
I
you
want to point out that when I met him, he declared himself the nice one.
oh yeah, for sure, he is the nice one, by the way.
Nice at sex.
Yeah, exactly. So when you think about it, when you hug somebody, if they hug you back, fine. But you think about what you do to a kid, right? Your kid, you hug them and they're squirming and you're kissing them, and that's kind of what God did by Mount Sinai. I love you, whether you like it or not. He gave us a beer hug, and we can't go anywhere else. And obviously, because He showed us love, we showed Him. We reciprocated. But then comes the story of Purim, where God makes a feast, and God says, "I'm not forcing anything. Everything is up to you. You want to buy in? Yes or no?" It's a whole different level of relationship. It's a much more mature relationship. That's why it says at the end of the Megillah, the Jewish people bought in. They received upon themselves the Torah. It said, "V'kibel haYehudim eit asher chilul asot."
Kiblu.
Yeah, they accepted upon themselves the Torah.
Kabbalah in
A lot, yeah, sure.
that story.
So it said, and this is why the story, the holiday of Purim, is so special. And this, by the way, going to what Asaf said, this is why even when Mashiach comes, Purim is going to be, because what is the purpose of the world? That Hashem should show that He's boss. The whole point is that we should recognize that Hashem's boss.
Side notes.
Side notes.
The preparations for Esther took 6 months because
A year.
Or a year, sorry, because women needed a whole year's worth of preparations to like.
It says,
Be prepared for the king.
It says, Shisha Chadashim
There
and
were,
Shemen
like,
Amar,
houses
They
that
only-
were
in oil,
established
in myrrh
just
oil.
to make the
Yeah.
women pure.
Said-
Yeah,
king.
6 months in the myrrh oil. That's
6 months in the
Yeah.
myrrh oil, and 6 months in spices. Yeah,
Yeah.
12 months. And by the way,
It was a serious,
by the way, it was 1 day.
serious thing.
It was a 24-hour thing. You realize how One second. If you realize how barbaric these people
Hold
are,
on.
if you realize how barbaric this person, Achashverosh, had another person every night 4 years in a row. The guy was an animal. So saying
Legend.
Or jail.
legend. But I listened to a very interesting class, by the way, about Esther going to Achashverosh.
Very.
Very
We call her Adasa. She was a.
Whatever.
Her real name was Adasa.
Yeah, but it's known as Megillah Esther.
And Ishtar it's Ishtar and Marduk. That are
Oh, by the way, Kol Enoch, Vashti was upset. Vashti, one of the things I forgot to mention, Vashti was angry that Achashverosh didn't send noble ministers. He sent like just Enoch. He said, "I'm the queen."
Send eunuch. Yeah.
You said you got to send the best of the best. What are you sending me the riffraff? It's according to one of the commentators. They say that's one of the reasons why she got upset.
Side note.
Side, yeah.
Haman's great grandson happens to be pretty great.
Yep, Rabbi Akiva.
Rabbi Akiva.
Yep. So it says in the Gemara, Haman's great grandchildren learned Torah and Abraham. Yeah.
Just shrugged his.
You say, but
I never met the man.
Haman, by the way, Haman he hated the Jews, but he was a very knowledgeable person.
Yeah.
The guy knew. The problem was instead of
You're full of Amalek blood.
the problem is he was 1 + 1 is 3. Instead of accepting 1 + 1 is 2, I'll just kill everybody. It says it's 2. I mean that's Haman's. So it says, how do we know that Purim won't be abolished? Because in text number 12 it says, okay, that's it. Therefore, it says that the days called Purim on account of the words, the Jews established and accepted upon themselves an offspring, and all will join them, and will never cease from their seed, from the descendants. So that's proof that when Mashiach comes, we're still going to be celebrating Purim.
Side note. There was.
You're running out of asterisks.
There was 24,000 Jews hanging out in Israel, saying like they had already left.
When? But running to Israel wouldn't have helped. Achashverosh controlled Israel.
No, Cyrus. When Cyrus's decree, 24,000 along with Asaf's descendants.
After
Went
later.
No, during Cyrus's decree, 24,000. I went with that. Yeah,
That's later. This is
That's
after. Achashverosh dies very soon after the Megillah. After the story of Purim, he dies very soon. Esther has Achashverosh's child.
Fine, but that's the second wave that comes. There's an initial wave that's already in Israel. The original 24,000.
That's Ezra.
The story of Purim happens to those that stayed back, that did not go.
The story of Purim is for everybody.
Oh, of course. But during the story of Purim, there are 24,000
But by the way,
in Jerusalem.
even in the story of Purim, most of the Jews live in Babylonia. They don't live in Persia.
Agreed, but
Yeah.
there was still the 24,000 initially that
Yeah.
left, and this
So-
happened to all the rest of them that thought that
So it's like the famous Gemara.
Assimilate.
God was gone, that God didn't go with them into
That's
exile.
why. That's why
That's why
Ezra.
it was such a great.
That's why Ezra took away the Levites'
Kabbalistic
agricultural entitlements. You know,
What?
Ezra suspended the Levites' agricultural entitlements. Certain things the Levites have to get 10%, but
Go
because they didn't come in the
Oh.
initial wave.
No,
Ezra said,
Sofs did.
I said-
The other ones didn't.
So he said-
Some of them did, some of them didn't.
so he said that's fasted. Let's go.
Sofs did. Sofs' descendants did.
Okay. Anyway, Rava said, you're getting personal.
I mean, I really like the
Rava
book of
said,
Ezra.
Rava said,
Makes my
text 12b. He said the famous Gemara in Gemara Shabbos. He said the Jewish people accepted the Torah again in the time of Achashverosh. Like it says, "Kimu v'kimu lahav Yehudim." The Jews established and accepted upon themselves. Kimu masha kiblu kvar. They accepted. They reaffirmed what they already. So now going back to what we said before. Now we have free choice, and we have liberty. Isn't that contrary to religious observance? Or is it relevant?
Now we know that he's with us in Galut. So.
But based on what we're saying, it's the most important. When you don't have a choice, put it this way: when the Jews lived in a shtetl, and the Gentiles didn't accept you, and everybody was religious, so you were religious sort of by default. You didn't have a choice.
When you were in Israel, you were
Israeli. But for a Jew, in modern day.
For life.
So when a Jew who is a modern day Jew, right, who lives and could be anything he wants and do anything he wants on Shabbos, do anything, but instead he decides I'm going to go to shul, or he could eat whatever he wants, but he decides I'm going to eat kosher food and put on tefillin. It's something much greater than that, because he's buying in not for any other reason, just because he wants to be. And this is what Hashem is telling you in verse 13 in the book of Deuteronomy. He says, here, this is a beautiful. I'm per the Jews freely accepted the Torah, making the commitment truly authentic and complete. So maybe you could buy out before, but now there is no getting out of it. So Hashem is telling you, listen, guys, I'm begging you, giving you the choice to choose good. You could choose bad, but I'm begging you, please make the smart choice. When does Hashem give us this choice? The story of Purim. So in the feast where he says, now you have this ability, what to do, and no one's forcing you. So the fact that as a Jew you decide to do something Jewish, there's something. It's a very, the story of the Samach Tzedek. A guy came to him once and said, I have no desire to learn Torah. What should I do? Samach Tzedek says, I have a bigger problem. I do have a desire to learn Torah. So all my learning Torah is worth nothing, because I enjoy it. You, when you do it, you're opting in, and it's the greatest mitzvah, because you're doing it just because Hashem said. And like the Ramah says, finishing off in text 14. This says the drinking follow the rule. Don't say your actions are forced upon you. It isn't the rule. The drinking mentioned was gracious, with no coercion at all. Choice, laya, is in your hand. No one's forcing you to do anything, to do good, to do bad. Because Hashem, King of Kings, exalted, established it this way upon all the officers of ourselves. Meaning the entire world, everything's up to you. The world is Hashem's home, and He commanded everyone may do as he desires. And the famous Gemara, it says, "Kol b'dei Shemayim," everything's in the hands of heaven, chutz, except for Yireh Shemayim, except for the fear of heaven. No one controls how you act.
Side note, that rule number 8, where it says the king, whether it's the king Achashverosh or the king, when it's just the king, he's talking about God.
Yeah.
And here it's saying God, the text says, do is lasot keratzon ish.
Do what you want.
So it's really talking about what God's decree is here, not Achashverosh's.
God's decree that you should have free choice.
There it is.
Yeah.
It was in Achashverosh's decree.
Right?
It's a little secret nugget.
Well, it says actually in the Gemara that the heart of the rulers, of the world rulers, are in the hands of God. God manipulates world rulers according to his. Don't tell Trump I said that.
Why you should?
Okay, I'm kidding. Okay.
He's a golden head.
He doesn't want to be manipulated.
He's good old Nebuchadnezzar, reincarnated, here to give us back Jerusalem and our king.
We should with Mashiach, and so now,
He's
so
Nebuchadnezzar. You should be happy. He's coming back and he's
so
doing his
Hashem.
people.
Hashem expects us to choose wisely. We have the good choice and the bad choice. And let's see how the Rebbe puts it in text 15. He says, "V'zehu," and this is also a deeper hint in the verse describing the feast that Achashverosh made, or the king made for all the people of Shushan, the capital. Who's the capital? The Jewish people, whether his Hashem's close nation, who dwelling in the capital, close to the king. Hashem is inviting you to his feast. What does it mean to be in the feast with the Eibishter? That's learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. We are the true feast and source of joy for a Yid. Crucially, Hashem extends this invitation with complete freedom of choice. I'm inviting you. You can say no, right? You could say no. But Hashem says, listen, you can do whatever you want. But when the king invites you, who'd want to go away? This highlights a fact that Hashem is not forcing us. He's asking us, please join me. Which other holiday does Hashem do that to us? Pesach, Hashem took us out of Egypt, whether we liked it or not. You went out of Egypt. There was no Jew left behind. Har Sinai, we accepted the Torah, whether you liked it or not. Right? You were stuck in the desert. Either you rely on God or you're dead. So Sukkot, you did it like the one holiday where Hashem says, let's celebrate together. I mean, it's now we understand why Purim is hot. Which, by the way,
Brit Milah, no choice.
exactly. Well, there's a reason for that.
It's happening.
There's a reason for that.
I know it.
In fact, the Rebbe has a fascinating talk. The difference between, we'll tie it in by the way. There's an argument between Yishmael and Yitzchak. Who's
The
greater?
one didn't circumcise completely. One just
No,
cut the
he's-
foreskin. The other one did. No, he didn't. The membrane. He didn't pierce the membrane.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
Whoa, too Kabbalistic.
no, the argument between Yishmael and Yitzchak is Yishmael said, I'm better because I did it at 14.
13.
13, sorry, 14 when Yitzchak was born. 13. No, 14.
13.
All right, 13, right, because he did it right, yeah. There were 13. So I knew what I was doing. Yitzchak said, I'm better because I did it when 8 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. Right? So the Rebbe has a whole fascinating talk why Yitzchak was a higher level, because the connection that a Jew has to Hashem ultimately is not because of what you do. It's because of what you are. And it's beyond understanding. It's particularly because of that, beyond understanding.
And for
But-
the record, Muslims until today
Some.
don't do the full Brit Milah. They only do the cutting of the foreskin. They
Right.
don't tear the membrane.
All right?
What?
Yeah.
So but just
That's why it's
just
not a real.
I don't care.
Just to finish off, so there's two parts. There's two parts to our relationship. All right, let me finish off. There's two parts. There's two parts to the. There's two parts to our relationship with Hashem. One is that we're in it whether we like it or not. That's a very basic, fundamental level. You're a Jew. You're a Jew. You're a Jew. Nothing you can do about it. But that's not an optimal relationship. The optimal relationship is that you're in it because you choose to be it, because you love it. And if a person can do a mitzvah and appreciate the mitzvah, that is the highest level. That's why Purim is the greatest holiday, holier than Yom Kippur. Let's do key points. Opa. Okay. Achashverosh feast, 1 second. Achashverosh feast featured a unique no coercion policy that suspended typical social norms and allowed guests to complete freedom of choice. When Rashi leaves an obvious question unaddressed, it means either he answers self-evident or he already answered it in another comment. When the Megillah uses the term the king, without specifying Achashverosh, it can be read as referring to God. While the Jews accepted Torah Mount Sinai under overwhelming influence of divine revelation, during Purim, they chose Judaism freely without compulsion. The inner meaning of all this, Achashverosh creating a space of true freedom, This reflects that Hashem grants every single Jew, you and I, the free choice, and that reflected in the Purim story. The Jewish people's commitment to Yiddishkeit during Purim arrived without miracles, right? It was a nes b'teich teva, a miracle in nature, which is ultimately really more special than a Mount Sinai, because the idea is you should recognize godliness in nature, and God deeply values our individual free choice. He wants us to embrace Torah and mitzvahs, but to do so out of authentic choice rather than out of compulsion. So I'll end up with one story.
Wait, don't end it. I want something after your story.
Okay, I'll pre-end it with one story.
Okay.
There was a.
If you want to end it with your story, let me get my thing in first.
All right.
Whichever one you want.
Okay, thank you for letting me to run my
me
class
choose.
how I want. I think. So
You invited.
Yeah.
You invited this.
Yeah.
You wanted
I think we're going to the Mount Sinai.
It was a personal invite.
We're gonna mute your microphone.
Don't forget to subscribe and like.
There was a chassid.
Ring the bell.
There was a chassid who was a businessman. So when the chassid in Lubavitch dressed like a regular Jew's dress, when he was with the Russian businessman, he dressed like a different way. It wasn't like that.
More tracksuits.
I think the Jews then dressed in long, kapot, a long jacket. I don't know what the fashion was in the 1800s. They're all oligarchs who wore tracksuits.
Tracksuits.
Big golden chain, right? Yeah.
It's Nike.
Anyway, so what happened was, one time he said, "Why am I going to fool the Rebbe? He knows I'm a businessman." So he walked into the Rebbe wearing a suit. So the Rebbe said, "Here I thought the real you was the guy in the kapata. Not what did you come to show me, right?" Hashem wants to see us the real me, the real you, not because you come in front of the Rebbe and you're intimidated. That's why you do it. Because you should do it because that you understand that's the way to do it. Last comment.
The final book in Tanakh is Purim. The first the first prophet that we put is Hosea. Hosea brings the prophecy of you will call, as God, he says, you will call me my man, not my husband.
Yeah.
Which is that we started as husband, but you will call me, the relationship will be more personal. They call me Ishi.
Right.
And it ends
Cholzare.
with us calling him my man. We're no longer married. We're
Reunited. Yep. Purim is ultimate. All right, everyone, have a good week. Next Monday.